Hey guys, welcome to your first video lesson. Unit 1, Lesson 1, Adding and Subtracting Decimals and Estimation. You should have received a copy of the notes in class, but if not, you can go to the Google Classroom to print one off, or grab an extra piece of paper and just do the Now You Try sections as we get to them in the video so that you can show them to us next class. We've already looked at how to add and subtract without using decimals, but we're going to go through an example of them here anyways, just to refresh our memory. In the first question, 2,349 plus 754, we're looking to line up the ones column. The ones column will be our 9 and our 4. So first I'm going to rewrite 2,349, and then I'm going to put my plus sign in my line. This just helps me to organize as I go. The second step you don't have to do, but it'll help us to organize our numbers. When I do this, it's easier for me to see where my ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands columns are, so that I can properly place 754. 754. This also helps me to see which numbers I'm going to be adding together. We always start from right to left. 9 plus 4 is 13. Make sure to carry the 1 on top of the next column because it's a tens. Then we do 1 plus 4 plus 5 for the next column, which is 10. The 1's here, the 10 up there. 1 plus 3 plus 7 is 11, carrying that 1. And then 1 plus 2, which is 3. So our final answer for this one is 3,103. For our second one, we're going to be subtracting. Still, we want to line up our ones columns, though. In this case, it's our 9 and our 8. 6,529 subtract 4,378. I didn't use the lines this time, but feel free to do that if it helps you out. 9 subtract 8, so remember this is subtraction, not addition, is 1. Second is 2 minus 7. 2 is smaller than 7, which means I actually can't subtract it now. Instead, I'm going to be borrowing. So whenever that number is not big enough, we have to borrow from the next one and take 1. So the 5 becomes a 4 and the 2 becomes a 12. Now that I've done that, I can subtract 12 minus 7, which is 5. In the column next to it, it's no longer 5 minus 3. It's now 4 minus 3, which is 1, and then 6 minus 4, which is 2. So our final answer for this one is 2,151. If we're adding and subtracting decimals, the only thing we need to do is to remember that there's a decimal and include that. We're still going to line up our ones column, but I find it easier to look at it from lining up the decimals. If we write the number 23.49, we're going to line up the decimal in the 75.9 with the decimal in the 23.49, and I'll explain where the ones column comes into play after this. So now I've got my 7 and 5 before the decimal and my 9 after the decimal. The ones column still lines up, but in our answer, we're going to see that lining up the decimal place actually helps us too. This is still addition. Underneath this first 9, there's actually nothing there. So that's a 0. You don't have to write the 0 in there, but I think it helps. 9 plus 0, 9. 4 plus 9, 13. And the 1 carries over here. Then we've got our decimal, since they all line up. 1 plus 3 plus 5 is 9, and 2 plus 7 is 9. So we end up with 99.39. And remember, we're not using calculators for this, but you can use a calculator to check your final answer when you're doing the Now You Try. In our subtract the following, we have 28.29, and we're going to line up the decimals in both answers. 8.78. Decimals look weird there. This is subtraction, remember, not addition. So 9 subtract 8 is 1. 2 subtract 7, we just saw this earlier. We can't take away this right now until we get to our integers unit, so we're going to have to borrow. We borrow from the next number, which is the 8. So the 8 becomes a 7, and the 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. Then we've got our decimal place, so make sure to include that there. 7 minus 8 also can't do that, so we have to go and borrow again. This time we're going to borrow from the one to the left of that number. So the 7 becomes a 17. 17 subtract 8 is 9. And then 1 subtract 0, since there's nothing there, is 1. So our final answer for that one is 19.51. Whenever we get to these sections here that have this "now you try," that means that you are going to be trying it out on your notes package. If you have a scrap piece of paper, you can use that too. I recommend that you pause the video at this point and try out each of these without using a calculator. But remember to check your answer with the calculator at the end. Hopefully you got all 4 of those right. If not, we're going to be doing lots of practice in class tomorrow, including some games. On the next page, we're going to just start estimation. Estimation is one way we can check to make sure our decimal is in the correct place. We're also going to look at some examples of why estimation is actually sometimes a preferable method in some lifetime situations. An estimate is just an approximate or close answer. There are 2 ways that we're going to learn to estimate. The first is front-end estimation, and the second is rounding estimation, also sometimes called relative size. We're only going to do front-end estimation today. In front-end estimation, we're going to take the first number, the first digit, and turn the rest of the digits within that number to a 0. For example, 87.85. The 8 is the first number, so we're going to write the 8 down and turn all the numbers behind it, these 3, into zeros. For our second one, 14.60, we're going to take the first number, 1, and turn the rest to 0. So the 4 becomes a 0. We have our decimal place. The 6 becomes a 0, and the 0 remains a 0. And the very last one, same thing, front end, we take the first number and turn the rest to zeros. So we write the 7, but the 3 becomes a 0, the 4 becomes a 0, then we have our decimal, and the last 3 becomes a 0. So now we have 80 plus 10 plus 700, which is much easier to add than the previous. I'll just line them up, 80, 10, and 700, because our 700 has a hundreds column in it, right? Whereas the other ones are just in the tens. We have to make sure we're including both of those zeros when we're adding. 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 1 plus 0 is 9. And 7 just brings down like this. So our final answer, or estimation, is 790. If you were to put this into a calculator using these numbers, you should get something that's close. It's not as, the front-end estimation is not as accurate as doing our calculation, right? Because our calculation gives us something exact, but sometimes it's preferable. We'll look over that in class tomorrow. We have a Now You Try section now, so if you can pause the video and try out both of these different sections. The first one, you're just using front-end estimation for each of the numbers, and in the second one, you're going to solve. We're going to take these up in class before the quiz. That's it for the lesson. Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, you have an entry quiz at the start of our next math class together that's going to include questions that are very similar to the Now You Try section questions. If this lesson wasn't enough, or you need more practice, there are links to more videos in the description below. See you soon!